Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Adubato, but way more importantly, we are honored to be joined by Kimberly Mutcherson, who is co-dean and professor of Rutgers Law School, an expert on reproductive rights, a reproductive justice scholar. Professor Dean, so good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're taping this at the end of May 2020. From your perspective, you've analyzed this, you studied it, you researched it, you understand abortion rights better than most. Where are we in New Jersey, and where do you believe this country is as it relates to reproductive rights?
Well, the New Jersey story is a positive story. New Jersey passed the Reproductive Freedom Act not so long ago. We have codified Roe versus Wade in this state. So
what does that mean? I'm sorry for interrupting. Codified means it's in the books, you can't mess with it?
Well, I mean, the legislature could at some point decide to reverse the law, but I doubt that that will happen. So it used to be that abortion rights were protected in New Jersey because of court cases, which is also good. But it's also nice to have it as an official part of the laws of the state. So that's where we are now. So New Jersey is a state where reproductive rights are going to be well protected. The rest of the country is a very different story. So there are probably going to be at least half of the states within the next several months where abortion is banned completely.
Texas law, U.S. Supreme Court allowed Texas law, which bans abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Mississippi case, Supreme Court justices will rule on Dobbs versus Jackson. Again, timing is tricky here because this is the end of May. Dobbs versus Jackson Health Organization. In June, we're going to find out by the time this show airs. The case goes right to Roe. It challenges Mississippi's abortion ban after 15 weeks. So is each state, Professor, going to say, listen, this is what we want to do. The legislature will pass whatever. The governor, he or she, they will sign whatever. So we'll have a hodgepodge of reproductive rights laws in each state?
That's exactly what it is going to look like. And in fact, there are about 13 states that already have laws on the books that we call trigger laws, which basically say as soon as Roe versus Wade is overruled, abortion will be illegal in our jurisdiction. So that's 13 states right off the bat.
You know, we've been doing an ongoing series about race and trying to deal with issues of institutional racism, all forms of racism. To what degree, from your perspective, Professor, if the Supreme Court does what is expected based on the Associate Justice Alito's written opinion that was leaked, this will be known by then. Will this have a disproportionate effect on Black and brown women?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because?
For a couple of reasons. So one is that a disproportionate number of Black women in this country have abortions. So if you make abortion illegal, there are a large group of folks who won't have access to it. It also means that people who have fewer resources will be less likely to be able to access abortion services. And so we know that there's serious income inequality in this country and that there's a race component to that. So if you don't have the resources to travel to another state, you don't have the resources to get the childcare that you need, you can't take time off of work, right? All of those things are reasons why somebody would not be able to access abortion services. Think also of women in rural parts of the country, right? If you have to travel for 2 days in order to be able to access an abortion. So really these kinds of bans mostly target people who are already the most vulnerable people.
You know, I'm curious about this. We've often argued that the courts are supposed to be non-political, which is humorous. You know, it's not. President Trump, when president, appointed several members of the Supreme Court. President Biden, only Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. We will see what happens moving forward. Elections have consequences, particularly in our courts. Here's the question. Given that more people than not believe in choice, some restrictions, do you believe the court should in any way reflect what appears to be, quote unquote, public opinion on this issue?
That's a really great question, right? So on one hand, the assumption is that the court, as you said, should be apolitical, that they should just be focused on the Constitution and law. But what we also know is that it has been the case over time that public opinion sometimes seems to sway where the Supreme Court lands. I think what's really hard about this is that when you think about our system, we have the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The only branch that we don't get to vote for are the judicial branch, right? I mean, those are the folks who get to, they sit for life.
Sorry for interrupting. Should we vote for our judges? Because in some states they do, obviously not on the Supreme Court.
Right, that's right.
But
obviously not on the Supreme Court. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that we should have a national election for Supreme Court justices. I do think that there is room to talk about reform of the court, and I'm not necessarily, on board with court packing, but there are some things to really think about.
How about moving from 9 to 12?
Well, certainly there's nothing in the Constitution that says that we can't do that. I guess the question becomes, once you move to 12, why not move to 15? And once you move to 15, why not move to 20?
So the slippery slope here as it relates to the judicial process, there are some folks who are very upset. Well, President Trump got to a point 3. President Obama on the way out was not able to, I'm not going to get into the inconsistency there as to, well, on the way out, you shouldn't be doing, let the new person, but that wasn't the case consistently. That being said, if this were to play out and Roe v. Wade were to be reversed by the court, again, if this is seen over the summer and beyond, people will know. What effect do you believe this will have on women overall in this country in terms of their sense of how, and not every woman believes one thing on this, that's clear, but just on quote unquote women's rights?
I think it says something really profound about where we are as a country. Because the truth of the matter is that for women to be able to finish their education, to get the kinds of jobs that they want to get, to live the career that they want to live, to make the choices that they want to make in life, you have to be able to control your reproductive health and your reproductive choices. And particularly in a country that claims to care so deeply about families and about children and about caretaking, and yet we don't have paid maternity leave, we don't have paid paternity leave. Childcare is wildly expensive in this country. So there are all of these things that could actually make it easier for people to have families and make it easier for people to parent. And we don't do those things.
Before I let you go, do you believe, as some do, that this apparent decision on Roe v. Wade, as it relates to civil rights, the rights of individuals, that it could move into same-sex marriage and a whole range of other issues that have been adjudicated, that have been litigated, that have been legislated, and are where they are now, but may not be that way forever? Or come on, that's hyperbole, right?
It's definitely not hyperbole. And I want to really sort of reflect back on the folks who, when Trump got elected, and we're saying that, we're all being hysterical by thinking that Roe versus Wade could be overruled. And yet here we are. And if you look at the language in the draft opinion from Alito, on one hand, he says abortion is different. And so all of these other rights, there's no reason to be worried about those. But the language that he uses is incredibly broad, right? So one of the things that he says is, well, the word abortion doesn't appear in the Constitution. Guess what? Woman doesn't appear in the Constitution. Privacy doesn't appear in the Constitution, right? I mean, there are lots of things that we think of as being important rights to us that are not specifically enumerated in the Constitution.
Yeah, one more thing on this. My job is not to editorialize, but in terms of the Second Amendment, we're taping after Texas.
Yep.
Assault weapons, not in the Constitution.
Not in the Constitution.
As it relates to the Second Amendment. So
that's right.
You decide for yourself. Kimberly Mutcherson, co-dean professor at Rutgers Law School, cannot thank you enough, and also thank you for the work that you're doing with other media organizations, particularly NJ Spotlight News. You've been on consistently sharing important and valuable information. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. It's our honor. I'm Steve Adubato. That is Dr. Kimberly Mutcherson. We're right back.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, PSC&G, Choose New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, Summit Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and by New Jersey Sharing Network. Promotional support provided by Jaffe Communications and by ROINJ.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharif Elnahal. Did you know that there are nearly 4,000 New Jerseyans waiting for a life-saving transplant? And 67% of those people are people of color. Just one organ and tissue donor can save 8 lives and enhance the lives of over 75 people. Let's come together to raise awareness in our diverse communities. Donation needs diversity. You have the power to make a difference. For more information or to become an organ and tissue donor, visit www.njsharingnetwork.org.